So the other day, a couple days ago, I started to think of Karen Carpenter a lot. And, I wasn't feeling good. And I don't know, I just thought of her a lot. And I started to look up her music. And I'll tell you this, when I was a teenager, the Carpenters weren't popular anymore. But I would be at, let's say, school lunch or on the bus, and I'd have my earphones, and I would secretly be listening to Karen Carpenter. Um, and I loved her. I loved her voice. I still do. Um, and as a child, I remember the specific memory of my mother ran this little library in our little Mayberry town. And in the little dusty library, my mother had a radio, and she would play whatever popular music was on at the time, whatever music that they play, random AM, AM stuff. Um, Whatever came on. And I remember one day Karen Carpenter's voice came over the radio. And I remember exactly where I was. Everything stopped. The world stopped. And I thought, in this little tiny girl voice in my head, I thought, that's the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. And I probably imitated her voice a million times. Now, I have this lower, you can hear it, this lower warm tone in my voice. And I have like this, I can go really deep and I can go up high if I want to. And in the middle is this horrible break that I've always had to work through. If you don't know about singing, there's a middle part of your voice that breaks, and your natural voice is like what you're classified as. Can you sing alto, soprano? There's like second soprano, second altos. For a guy, you're tenor or bass, deep bass. I'm an alto, obviously, and I can sing soprano, but it's harder. It's a lot of work. But she would be classified, I believe, as also an alto, and she could her voice would get pretty low, but it was that warmth, like syrup, that beautiful warmth in her voice. She was also an extremely talented drummer. That was her genius gift, was her drumming. Very talented jazz drummer. That's really what she should be known for, but God gave her, the divine, gave her this immensely beautiful voice. The voice of the angels, basically. And she looked like an angel. But the problem was, she was extremely insecure. And I'm not going to try to channel everything. There's lots of people have channeled her, so I've probably heard all of it, and it wouldn't be quite genuine for me to just regurgitate what we've all heard before about her. I do get that she's a bit of a tomboy, and I remember one time I said that, and people got really mad at me. And I was like, but I think she kind of was. And I think that stifling of her tomboyishness caused some of her control over her body. She's one of those girls who would have liked to have stayed without a period, without the change of getting a period and getting a body, shape in your body and becoming a woman. She would have kind of wanted to stay a boy. And I'm not saying she's LGBTQ, but she might have been on that spectrum. And I think stifling that, the fact that she had no choice, the way she was raised and the society she grew up in, not blaming her parents, the society she grew up in, she didn't really have a choice. And I think a lot of that started the anorexia, which is what as we all know, she had anorexia and she died from heart complications due to anorexia. So I think that she had that weird thing that happens to some girls where they get their period and they freak out and they don't like the changes, and their father acts weird too. So then they lose this thing they have with their dad, with their daddy's girl, and daddy's like, oh, now you're turning into a woman. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And that really made her depressed. So she and her brother had a really good bond. Now that remained. And luckily, that remained her entire life. She didn't feel like her mother quite understood either. She just felt like anytime she tried to tell, and I'm spouting this, I'm channeling this, anytime that she tried to tell anyone, look, I have this weird, I don't like, shh, let's not talk about that. Let's be positive. We're not going to talk about these things. Okay, it's all going to be fine. Everything's fine. So she put it into her drumming. She's really good at drumming. I'm going to prove that I'm really good at drumming. This is what I'm good at. I don't care about my body or what I look like. I want everyone to see that I'm this fantastic drummer. And she was. And her brother saw. And her brother's friends saw. And his musician friends saw. Her brother was this very talented pianist. And so he was already known as this extremely, the Beethoven of modern day in his area and town. He's a very smart and gifted guy. And so she was competing with him. She really looked up to her brother and was competing with him for attention and love and praise. Praise me, love me. And it worked because then she started to outshine her brother in a way. And things fell together. They put together a band and they started to get the sound, and their voices, of course, were very complimentary as family singers when they can sing. The voices together are just pure heaven because they come from the same stuff. They're like weaving a cloth of silk. They're, complementary. It sounds good. The Everly Brothers, think of that. Think how great their voices sounded together. It's just something that clicks. So her and her brother doing the band, showing for drumming, and it's all cool and everything. And then this weird thing happens where they start to get some notoriety and they're doing gigs, and then they get approached to record. This is where I have to delve into what do I not know, what am I not seeing. I mean, there's just the problem is the things that I know are competing with my intuition. So I don't think I'm going to try to even delve into that because we all know they got a recording contract, and I'm guessing they went with Capitol. And they did the whole, they got famous because they were savvy enough to put her voice in the front because her voice was the golden ticket. And they were also savvy enough to be able to find avenues of finding the right singers, writers. So who's the guy? Burt Bacharach, I believe. And so that matched the energy and quality of her voice. It was the perfect match. And then they were savvy enough to hear We've Only Just Begun, which was a TV jingle for a product, like Coca-Cola. It was like that. It was supposed to be like All the World Needs the Coke, da, 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 and perfect harmony. We've Only Just Begun was an answer to that commercial. And they're like, well, that sounds like a great song. And that would fit her voice perfect. They had the vision. It was like a gift from God, this song. And so they did it. And my God, when you hear her voice, it sends shivers down you. Now, but let's go back to her. So all this fantastic stuff is happening. But what happens to someone when all the attention's put on someone who really didn't want to have attention right on them, but more on their accomplishments, her drumming. And remember, she's a tomboy through all of this. They're putting the attention on her voice, but also on her, Karen, this very insecure girl at heart. She's still like a 13-year-old girl being shoved out in the public eye. And before, she was in her brother's shadow, competing with him. And now she's out in front. She's the one taking the blows of the public eye, which can be very difficult, very difficult. So then that control with her eating, control really ate away at her. So here's the thing I forgot to say. Okay, going back. It was her birthday yesterday, I believe. Yesterday or the day before. I didn't know that. When I read that last night, I was like, oh, that's why. Because I literally yesterday asked, why do I keep thinking of Karen Carpenter? And then I saw it was her birthday. So energetically, like that little time clip in the timeline of us, my energy picked it up. Or maybe she called out to me because I did ask her, why me? Why me? She said to me, Amy, you've been going through it. and you're very stressed and you needed to listen to my voice to calm you down and bring some sweet moments of healing to you, to your soul. And she said to me that the way that I deal with life and how I hide myself and suffocate myself from going to events and living life in general, and I'm just hiding away. She said, you're anorexic just like, and you're, the way you treat yourself is the same way that I treated food. And she told me that I was hurting myself by suffocating myself from life, that I was literally starving myself from my life. And that's why my body has begun to go into freak out mode with stress hives and sickness and, all of that stuff. And she also said that she would like me to sing as her and sing her songs. I don't know how that's going to happen, but and I'll tell you a story. I know I've cut out of her channeling in a way, but my son said to me, well, okay, one day when he was little, and I had done some recordings, so he'd heard, my songs and my voice. He was little, and Karen Carpenter was on like my TV music station, and he stopped and he heard her voice and he turned to me and he said, Mama, that's you on the radio. So, yeah. The thing about Karen, even when I was a teenager, I thought about her a lot. And I think I've carried her energy with me a lot through all through my life here. I'm just one of those people who aligns with her, not her disorder, but her pain. She was like, you think about a song like Rainy Days and Mondays and you go, that's about depression. That's about being melancholy. That's about the blues that you get. And, like she says in the song, what I've got, they used to call the blues. It's just sometimes we're like that. Sometimes that's just how we are. And life is like that. And you see, the thing is, when she would sing, she could emote the absolute truth from her soul. And everybody understood it. It was such a beautiful thing. But her as a person, it was really hard for her to do the same thing just with a speaking voice. And I'm the same way. It's really hard for me. So I'll get back to Karen. That was my story about me and whatever. But yeah, it was her birthday. And I think that's why I picked up on her mostly. But for her, the thing was, the stigma of having anorexia is she didn't want to have it. It was this thing that happened to her because of how she dealt with changing and trying to go back and try not to let things change and try not to become this thing that was something different than what she was happy with. She was happy as this 13-year-old girl. Things were good, right? And then life sort of took away her control of what she wanted to be. And the more she fought, and the more she fought, and the more things crumbled. And my time was short. And I was unable to handle the pressure. I did try. I did want. But the damage had been done. I was like a tree with too much weight on it. Ice and snow and wind, lightning. And I collapsed. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to live and be happy. But it was like being in a hurricane every day. And being strong and being strong and being strong and standing there and digging your roots in, and then one day you just fall over. And she says she's sorry. She's very sorry for everyone's pain. She's not going to talk about if I could do it all over again, I would XYZ, because I don't have that opportunity. The music I left behind and the way it makes people feel, I'm very proud of. And my drumming. People are starting to talk more about what a fantastic drummer I was, and that makes me really happy. It was my hidden gift, my unused gift. My voice was good, yes, but my drumming was exceptional. In some ways, it would have been better for me to stay behind the drum kit. But that's not what happened in my life. I would have liked to have seen my brother Richard go on and do more with his music. But I am happy and honored that he kept up my memory of us together as the Carpenters. He had his problems too. I had to watch and try to help guide him from the other side, get through many issues in his life and his insecurities and depressions. She says, look, life isn't easy. No one ever said it was going to be easy. I just want all, especially girls, but all people to know that change is good. Embrace change like you embrace a new season. Dig into your strengths and don't cling to your weakness. Don't cling to your insecurities. Keep working on what's beautiful about you and what's strong about you and how you can move forward every day, not hide every day. I guess my death served as a lesson for many, and I don't want it to be an example of what to do to get attention. I wasn't doing it for attention. I was doing it as an insecurity. That's all. It was an insecurity. And I kept getting by with it. Be who you are and be that person with every grain of your soul. And yes, I chose the word grain. Feed yourself. Love yourself. Don't ask others to approve of you, but do listen when they want to help you. They show that they love you. But love yourself first. And don't give everything away to everyone. I should have said no more often. I really should have said no. I should have gone to Cancun more often. I should have had a France vacation all by myself. I should have just been a bad bitch and done a lot more things by myself and said no more often. The world could have waited. That's my advice to everyone. Stand up for yourself. Don't live in fear. Don't foster your insecurity. Be a bad bitch and say no more often. And really work with change. Don't hide from change. Don't stop change. Work with it. We all change. That's life. Nourish yourself. And nourish each other. I'm not a hero. I'm not a hero. But I'm happy for those who love me. For me. And I love you too. And that's the message. Thanks for listening. Bye.